Okay, this painting is the sort of first one of this series, and I was researching the idea of ore and the Australian landscape, and I kind of wasn't really sure what I was going to do, except that Norseman, which is this salt lake that this painting represents, is my hometown where I was born, and so I often go there to sort of sort things out or to get clearer about it. I love the landscape there, and I just feel really happy and more engaged when I'm there. So this was a bit of a test really about working at what kind of method I was going to use when I went to Wolfe Creek, because I thought it's going to be very, very difficult, so I'll try it out. So I rolled up this canvas which had a prime ground on it, a mixed ground of colours, and took it out on the salt lake. And originally I was going to paint one of the Salt Lake Islands because that's sort of like a powerful sort of thing. But then when I got out there, I kind of liked the way my focus was sort of dispersed with this, and the information was sort of spread evenly over the whole painting, and that just sort of caught my attention, as well as the sort of mauve hill in the background there. So I sort of worked off that. And also, I think once I started working, I realised that there was a patterning coming through from the salt lake, which you can sort of see in the painting there and in other parts there. And I thought that was quite nice that the ground was actually affecting the paint structure. And I thought this is kind of sort of actually solving a problem about, you know, the idea of touch and connecting with a geological landscape. And then I thought, well, that was quite exciting. And it sort of worked for me in the painting, and I thought I'll be able to use that as well when we get a bit further on. So yeah, so this is the starting point. I was pretty excited that I did this, and that I've never worked on this kind of scale in the landscape before, specifically like this. I have worked on a big scale before, and it was just sort of a new kind of project. It was acrylic, and acrylic paint I've sort of never really used. I had to use acrylic paint because it had to dry, and I had to roll it up and bring it back because I was on foot with a backpack and paints and buckets and stuff. So that was all these sort of factors, the material factors, influenced how the painting turned out. Basically, when I was heading to Norseman, I was reading the Joanne Lee's biography, which the Wolfe Creek story was loosely based on, and her experience of being in the landscape in a state of fear and hiding in the darkness and so on. And so that had a big effect on me. It's a really descriptive book and gets inside someone's emotional state. And the thing about awe is it's not an emotion that's like wonder or joy. It's got a fear or anxiety component. It's a very mixed kind of emotional state. And so that was what I thought probably was lacking in that picture, that I wanted to find in some other place. And the idea of going to Wolfe Creek was completely accidental. I was tidying a bookshelf, and a book, literally, this sounds like a cliche, but it fell out on the ground. I thought, what's this? And it was a book on the Wolfe Creek Meteorite Crater, and I thought, I didn't even really realise there was a real place like this, and I was just completely dumbstruck looking at this and thinking, I wonder if I could go there. And things lined up. I found out that a friend of mine worked there as a doctor in the community, and he was about as close as you could get to that particular site, and we've been talking about going out there. So those were the factors the practical factors that allowed me to go out there. And there's another component too, where you know, I was a kid in the space age, so my thing was always I wanted to go to the moon or Mars. And the idea of seeing a 300,000-year-old crater, a meteorite crater, would be about as close in my lifetime to that sort of experience. So it also weirdly had this sort of science fiction sort of aspect to it. And so all that was sort of the background to this experience, as well as the idea of connecting with the geology of the place, like the geology, the expression of the landscape and how I responded to that. And the landscape is a sort of an entity that's much bigger than me, and I'm sort of lucky just to survive there for a while. Obviously, I'm not equipped with the skills, and I should make a point that I'm extremely extremely grateful for the elders who agreed for me to be there and to later show these paintings from Balgo and Billy Luna. I just cannot believe how generous they were to permit that. But basically, it had that sort of feeling. When I arrived there, and this was the first view I saw of the crater, I kind of just had that thing, I can't believe I'm here. Like there was no one there. I was hours away on a bush track from the nearest town, and it was a very intense sort of feeling of just being engaged with this incredible 1 kilometre radius or diameter actually thing, this beautiful minimal structure in the Tanami Desert, and there I was, and now my job was to paint it. So it was a kind of a dream job, but it was also very difficult.
And so how did you get from that? Were you just excited to get there, and this was your first sort of touch on it?
Yeah.
So you kind of went through there and you had a look at the place, and was this the first day you visited as well?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So.
So you looked at that, and then you kind of second day, or was there a few days in between? And what was the difference in the approach?
I think this was the second day, and I think I was attracted to the fact there were some bushes down in the middle of the crater, in the kind of eye of the crater. I thought I might get a little bit of shade there, it might be a bit more luxurious and easy to paint there. But I also thought I don't want to just do sort of the same motif over and over, that it wouldn't be interesting to go down inside it and look up at the crater wall. And the actual central part had this interesting sort of spiral track. So I sort of just focused and set up with that, and it was all sort of burnt out too. So I like the blackness of it, and it was kind of a reminder that this isn't really a place that you can stay that long, or you're kind of a visitor there, and you've got something to do, and then you're not going to be welcome there anymore. So it had that sort of aspect of it as well, and rather than just like a glorified romantic idea of the landscape, it was like, know your place sort of thing, and work it. And so I like this one for that reason, that it had a sort of bit of a darker aspect to it. So yeah, I think it does get the feeling of the scale of the wall. Now, when I worked on them, for simplicity, like the edges of the picture were basically the edges of the frame that I was looking at. So when you stand here and look at it, it's more or less, from touch distance, how big that thing is. It's the actual scale of it you're getting. So I kind of like that direct translation. I think that's it, when you can look at smaller images and you have to translate the scale. When you look at it here, you can get that feeling of, that's how big this thing is, which was the thing I was really trying to understand. I was trying to think, how big is a kilometre circle, and how do you fit that into a canvas? So I was driving everywhere, like looking at football ovals, which are like 1/10 the size of that, and then I was looking at Lake Munga and thinking, is it that big, and can I take in something that's that big and look at it? So although those are all sort of practical things that I was obsessing over for a good year before I went there, so I'd sort of done a bit of sort of homework. Okay, so this one is a view from the east of the crater, which means you have to walk around the rim of it, which is quite difficult, but probably not as difficult as going down into it, because mainly I have a great fear of snakes, and death adders are the thing up there, and I was really hoping that I wasn't going to come across one. And I did see a snake, but it was fine. This view, a local said that it was the most crater-like view, and I think that's true. So I was lucky I got to talk to somebody. And the early photographs that Europeans took of the crater are often from this angle, to emphasise the sort of more brutal crater shape. And also when I got out there, I found this kind of burnt black bush that I thought was a really good motif, because it gives it a bit more of a scale, a sense of scale. And it was getting quite stormy too, so the clouds that were appearing there, I was thinking, oh no, this looks all sort of pretty and romantic, it's not what I wanted. But I thought, well, this is what's there, this is what's happening. So I put down the cloud formations as I saw them. So yeah, this is basically the last one I did as I was leaving, as I was going back up to Halls Creek, and I'd been really lucky. I hadn't had a blowout. I had got through lots of downpours, which means there are big lakes on the road and you drive slowly through them, you don't know what's going to happen. And yeah, I was sort of feeling a lot happier about the whole thing. So by the time I got to this painting, I was a lot less anxious about the whole process. I thought I knew more or less what I was doing, and I just, you know, loved putting it down. And getting this kind of view of the whole of this central, the eye of Wolfe Creek was also really good to be able to get that part down. That's got a bit, I've got sort of dog hair on it there. This is the last one. Now the others, you were just asking about drawing, and there was drawing in it, but it was quite different because I realised I couldn't reach the whole canvas. So I had a big cardboard tube, I had a stick of charcoal on the end of it, and I was doing that, which was really fun. And I also had another stick with some paintbrushes so I could reach the whole thing and stay in one sort of viewpoint. So it had all these really quirky technical things that were just, you know, really great because they were breaking the way my hand normally makes marks. And so yeah, drawing, the drawing was really important. But I kind of wanted to get away from that by the end of it. I was starting to think, wouldn't it be great if I could just do a pure painting that had no drawing in it, and it was just putting paint on. And there was another factor that sort of led to this, was also that the mood of them didn't seem to describe the kind of the sort of fear that I had when I was out there. And that was something I couldn't physically go there at night for various reasons, and I'd probably be too scared to go there at night by myself anyway, I don't know. But I wanted to do a painting that sort of encapsulated all those aspects that I hadn't quite achieved in the other ones, or it was a different experience, I think is a more accurate way of describing it. So this one was put together partly from my imagination. The colours were just colours that I built up from the studio. It also comes from looking very closely at the surface of a real meteorite to get the textures, the iron and nickel melted textures, and just to replicate that in paint. So this was almost just put down with pure paint. So that sort of solved some of the problems of the other painting. But I wanted it to relate too, so that it's just like there's another kind of voice or story, I can't think of the right word now, but of that sort of that expression of that experience of being out there. So this kind of finished the sort of series, or it opened up a new door actually.
What did you do after this? Did you come back to Perth and finish them off, or did you keep going with other little bits? Or what was like? This
one was actually done in Perth entirely. So the others, yes, I stretched them here and then just worked on them over a year. Just added marks and added colour and emphasis to them until I was sort of happy with that all of them were kind of on the same sort of plane. Some of them needed less work, but others needed more.
And did you continue along the same sort of theme? Did you create new paintings once you got back?
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I think the experience was so strong that I felt that I wanted to try and draw it out in different sort of areas. So I did smaller paintings and drawings and prints and other things to try and just get as much out of it as I could, or to at least try it in lots of other different mediums as well, to see that I was doing the right thing, or that I could do it the best of my abilities, you might say.
So what's the feedback that you've got on them?
I've had great feedback. I'm pleased, you know, it's always, you never know what people are going to say. You might do an exhibition, it can be a complete dud, and you think it's going to be really good, and then you get there and you're being fried. But this, I feel confident about this, and I'm, you know, lucky. I'm sort of really lucky in lots of ways to be able to have done it. So it's one of those projects where sometimes you take on a project, you don't know if it's really the right thing, but I was just like, I just couldn't wait to get there. You know, I had to wait a whole year before I could, and it was just brilliant. The whole experience was just amazing.